go to model 1, and in this question we're asked, is the graph below proportional? Give 2 pieces of evidence to support your claim. So take 30 seconds to just look at this graph and think about, what do you see? What do you notice? Hit pause. So here are some things that I noticed in the graph. One, I can see that the graph shows a straight line. We're talking about fabric amounts, and I noticed that as the amount of orange fabric increases, so does the amount of blue fabric. So here, this one goes up, so does the other. And so we create this line that is also increasing. So I see that, and I also notice that it's increasing at a pretty constant rate, meaning my line isn't changing. It's just a straight line moving up. It's constant. It's not going up and then kind of going flat and going up again at a different rate and changing. It's not changing speeds. It stays constant. And the last thing I notice is that it begins right here at the origin 0, 0. So how could I express this? Well, here's one way you can express it. Let's see, erase that. The graph fabric amounts is proportional. So I'm making sure I'm making that perfectly clear. I'm using that term. Why is it proportional? Look at the 2 pieces of evidence. There is a relationship between the amount of orange and blue fabric showing an increase at a constant rate. So I'm naming that increased constant rate. The graph is linear and begins at 0, 0. So I'm giving a lot of information that tells you all the reasons why I believe this is proportional. If I wanted to, I can add some additional data. I can give an example of a rate by finding a point. So here's one point, and I can find that ordered pair, which here is between 0.6 or 6/10 and 8/10. So this is 7/10 and 3/10. So here's a rate that exists on this chart. And if I were to keep moving, I can go another 7/10 over, but it will be off the graph, and I would just move another 3/10 up, and I will get to that next point. And you can see that if I continued, if I extrapolated the line, it will go through there. So I do have a rate, a constant rate that exists there. If I wanted to find the unit rate, I would just look for a place where my x value equals 1, and I want it to be exactly 1. And notice this graph has a different scale. So at 1, I would just have to figure out what this number is, and it's a little bit more than 4/10. But here you go. This is some of my thinking. I wanted you to see how I would answer a question like this and how I could even give some more information. So hit pause to jot this into your notes. And let's go to another one, this one being a multiple choice question, so I'm going to use raise. So let's start by reading the problem. The data table below shows the relationship between the weight and the cost of bulk candy. Which graph shows the relationship between the weight and the cost of bulk candy? So let's assign a question type for this. This is clearly, since it has to do with relationships, it is definitely RP. It is a ratio and proportion question. The important information I'm going to look for, I'm going to look for these points on the graph. And that first one being 1, 4, that's my first ordered pair. And I'm going to look for, let's also look for 3, 12. And I'm going to see if those exist on my point. So that's the key information that I'm taking from this as I'm solving it. So let's see, on my first graph, here's 1, 4. Okay, so they have 1, 4. And here's 3, 12. So it looks like they have those two, so I can keep on going. Here's 5 to 20 and 7 to 28. So far this information matches pretty well. So all my points seem to match. So I'm going to check with my next graph. And my first point, 1, 4. I see it. I see 1, 4. And my next point would be, well, actually, no, this isn't 1, 4. I see a 4. But you see that, math marbles? That just because there's a 4 here, that doesn't mean this is my first point, because I want 1. Remember, we go to 1, then 4. So we're going to eliminate this. This was a distractor because although I looked and I saw 4, it didn't match the coordinate pair 1, 4. So this is actually 4, 1. They were looking for someone to mix up their X and their Y. Distractor, get rid of it. In the second one, I'm looking again, and now I'm going to 1, but this is 1, 0. So automatically, although it starts at 1, that first point does not match the information in the rest of the graph, probably doesn't match as well. So for example, if I'm looking for 3 and 12, here's 3 up to 12. No, this information also does not match. And let's look at the last one. And I'm doing the same thing. If I'm going to 1, 4, I'm looking for a point here. And again, they just went to 4 and 0. So this also does not match. So yes, A would be the correct answer. Here we go. We have one more problem here. And in this problem, we have another graph. We have the lines graph to show the amount of water in 2 tanks that were filled over time. For each tank, explain whether or not there is a proportional relationship, that's what we're going to look at, between the amount of water in gallons and the time in minutes. Is there a proportional relationship? Identified unit rate. Use specific features from the graph. Okay, so there's tons of stuff they're asking for here. So let's jump to it and let's look at what we're seeing and what we're noticing. So again, I'm looking for a few things. Here's my look fors. I'm looking for my linear pattern in ordered pairs. I'm looking for a start at 0, 0. And I'm looking for a constant rate of growth. So those are all the things, and if those things are true, then I can identify a unit rate. All right, so looking at the very first one, is there a linear pattern? Yes, it makes a straight line. So does it start at 0, 0? No, it does not. So this one is definitely, tank A is not proportional. Let's move on to tank B. Is it a linear pattern? Yes, it makes a straight line. Does it start as the origin 0, 0? Yes, it does. Does it have a constant rate of growth? Yeah, it does. It's moving up pretty consistently. I'm trying to see if I can, here's an exact point right here at 2 and 600. And let's see if we can find another one that makes a lot of sense. Let's see, do I have 1 and 300? Here's 1 and 300. And the graph could go, I would be able to find more. So I can see it is every time I move over by 1 minute, it goes up by 300. Over by 1 minute, up by 300. So I know that it's going to continue going over by 1 minute and up by 300. So fantastic. And my last question was, does it have a unit rate? So again, I'm looking where x equals 1. I'm going to find my unit rate. And in this case, I do find it. It's right here when my time is 1 minute. Right here in a second, it will be 300 gallons of water. So let's put this into an explanation that makes sense. For each tank, explain whether or not there is a proportional relationship. So tank A does not represent a proportional relationship. Although linear, the line does not begin at the origin. tank B does represent a proportional relationship. It shows the increase in gallons of water per minute. And I'm going to name it 300 gallons per minute. It increases at a constant rate and starts 0, 0, just there on the bottom. So there we go. I've answered all the information here. I've explained why tank A is not proportional, and I've given evidence why tank B is proportional, as well as providing the unit rate. So hit pause and add this into your notes.